Hey there, this is Grant Cardone. You're in the Cardone Zone. Welcome. And I'm here tonight to talk to you about your business, your finances, your money. And folks, if you don't pay attention to what I'm telling you, you will pay a price as severe as the price Detroit is paying going bankrupt this weekend. Detroit, great city, one of the greatest cities, not in the United States, just the United States, but in the world. 60 years ago, Detroit was known worldwide. People from all over the world came to visit the great city of Detroit. And today, this week, Detroit files for bankruptcy. And here's the bad news. The same thing can and will happen to you if you don't pay attention to what has happened to Detroit. What did they do? What mistakes did they make? How long have they known this would happen? Folks, this is happening in Greece right now. It's happening in Spain. I say that it's happening in California due to debt, theft, overspending, tremendous amounts of denial. And I know a lot about denial. I'll tell you about that in a second. People lying to others and people lying to themselves, people not living within their means, and people, Americans, people in Detroit, California, Spain, and Greece, people unwilling to take the tough actions that actually broke the back of Detroit. And that's what I want to talk to you about tonight. How do you avoid that? I don't really want to talk about how to fix Detroit. I want to talk about what you have to know, what I have to do in order that this does not happen to me and you. And I'm concerned about you right now because I see many of you right now falling into some of the same things, thinking, actions, and denials that is taking place in Detroit. So let's just look at what happened in Detroit. Great city, one of the world's greatest cities. All the automotive was there for years. Production came there. We built manufacturing around it. Today, Detroit is broke. And what broke Detroit? Because what they're saying, what you'll read in the media is many say that Detroit is just dealing with forces beyond its control. Now, I remember when I was 23 years old and I had this unbelievably terrible drug addiction that was going to kill me, I actually started saying I was dealing with forces beyond my control. And I started surrounding myself with people and treatment centers and enablers that also supported this idea that I was dealing with forces beyond my control. That's what they're saying about Detroit today. Folks, Detroit is not dealing with forces beyond its control. When an individual, a county, a city, a country, a family, a business goes bankrupt, it was dealing with forces that it refused to control. And then later says, oh, we were dealing with forces beyond our control because that's what everybody says when it's too late. That's what everybody says when the spinal cord is finally broken. Here's what broke Detroit, and here's what will break you, your city, your county, your company. If you know the signs, you can avoid them. If you know what to look for, you'll know the potholes to miss, and that's why I'm talking about Detroit today. This is Grant Cardone. In the Cardone Zone, we fix your money, your finances. I want to show you the road posts, what to avoid. Here's what broke Detroit. Politicians unwilling to do tough things. Look, if you live in a city, a county, a state, or a country where the politicians are unwilling to make the tough calls, understand that sooner or later you will pay a price, just like the people in Detroit are paying today. And just like each American will pay going down the line if we don't stand up and do something different, unlike what Detroit did. They did nothing except complain. Also, number two, refusing to kill sacred cows. Now, this is a big, big point. Look, if you're not willing to get rid of the sacred cow are those things you can't get rid of. You know, you don't want to give up that thing. Detroit didn't want to give up some of their sacred cows like unions and pension funds. They were unwilling to give up the sacred cow, like Oldsmobile. We can't give Oldsmobile up. Dude, Oldsmobile was out of favor 20 years ago. It took them forever to finally kill the sacred cow. The third thing, when you continue to spend and you don't have the revenue, you're going to die. And that's happening again in America. You're doing it. All Americans are starting to spend more than they make again. Number four, dependent upon one source of income. The city of Detroit became dependent upon automotive only. Here in Orlando, we have many multiple revenues or sources, streams of income. That's what makes Orlando so strong. It's not just one thing or the other. When you look at Las Vegas, you see a city that needs to redo itself because it's so dependent upon gambling only or housing. And then when housing crumbles, the casinos shut down. You get my point. You don't want to be dependent upon one source of income. And this relates to you. Not making changes quickly enough. When you're not able to make changes and shift quickly enough, you will suffer and then not facing reality. Detroit didn't face reality. What happened in Detroit? San Bernardino in California, Stockton, California. These are also cities and counties that have filed for bankruptcy. And more will follow. See, 1 year ago, I saw the Detroit issue happening in Los Angeles where I live. I'm just about 10 or 12 years early, maybe only 7 years early. But you see, when I saw it, this is what I did. I made a list of sacred cows. I made a list of things that are sacred to me that I'm like, oh, I can't get rid of that. That is too important to me. And the reason I want to make a list of the sacred cows is because the sacred cows, as they're called, are always tied to emotions. And it is emotions that will most often bankrupt you and your family. For instance, my home where I lived in Lionel Richie's house on a hill overlooking all of Hollywood, all the way from downtown to the ocean. I was emotionally connected to this place. I loved it. My identity was wrapped up in this house. I was married there. We had babies there. We had our family there. We had friends there. Look, we didn't just party there. Everybody, all our friends knew, hey, the Cardone's house was the place to party. My identity was hooked up into this house. The weather in California. I had been addicted to the weather in California for 20 years. Loving it, thinking I couldn't go some other place. I was comfortable, which is also a sacred cow that people hold on to. Now, these three sacred cows for me, home, this is my house, the weather, and me being comfortable, are actually the things that were getting me stuck, emotionally connected, not rationally connected. Look, it's when you get emotional in business, in finances, that you get sunk. Cities, counties, unions, manufacturers, the big three, entire industries, countries can go under because people get emotionally connected to their social or to their sacred cows. Okay? Emotions cost money. They sink families, cities, and counties. Okay? So what are your sacred cows? What are your sacred cows? What are you scared to give up? Because if you're not willing to give up the things Detroit gave up, if your city, your county, your state, if your country is unwilling to make the hard calls, the tough calls, you too will go broke. So every week, News 96.5 here in Orlando, and me work on your finances, your business, give you the information you need so that what is happening to mass numbers of people in the middle class does not happen to you. Let me give you some ideas of what I think most people have as sacred cows. I hear this from people constantly that I work with. Well, Grant, we can't move. I know we need to move, Grant, but we can't move because the kids, they're going to school here. And you know, I can't separate Billy from his friends. Listen to the insanity of this. A husband and wife. I know it makes sense. I know it seems to make sense emotionally. Oh, I can't separate my little girl Sabrina from her other little 3-year-old friends, or her 13-year-old friends, or her 20-year-old friends. Folks, if you go bankrupt, you're going to separate your kids from their friends. Okay? I can't leave the house is another excuse people use. I know it doesn't seem like an excuse when you're using it. I've lived in this house my whole life. Is that rational or emotional? See what I'm saying? Those are the things you want to look at. The parents. My parents live here. We can't leave the parents. These are the things that keep people fixated. Number 4, we've lived here our whole life. All my friends are here. I went to school here. My alumni's here. I'm having a birthday party in 3 months. And number 5, I can't imagine starting over. I can't imagine starting over, okay? Now, folks, consider this. In 1973, because Detroit didn't go bankrupt this weekend, the oil embargo in 1973 hit the United States of America. If you weren't alive then, you don't remember, oil gasoline pumps doubled. We were rationed. You stood in line to get gasoline for your car. This country was literally producing, and all of Detroit was producing gas guzzling machines. Detroit was not willing to make the changes at that time. That was 40 years ago. Was not willing to make the changes quick enough, fast enough to build different products. Why? Because they were committed to sacred cows. In this case, it was big machines, 8-cylinder, heavy 4,000, 5,000 pound machines that burnt too much gas and oil. Then over the last 20 years, the big three started moving out of Detroit, and what did the people do? They went into denial. Oh, they'll come back. They're not going to move. The big three quietly and slowly moved out. And the big three have survived. The people in Detroit have not survived. Do you feel bad about Detroit? Do you feel like, oh my gosh? Nathan Bomey's on the phone with me, and he's the business editor at Detroit Free Press, and I think Nathan's going to tell me that Detroit saw this coming a long time ago. Nathan, talk to me.
Yeah, it's great to be on the show, Grant, and I think that you're right that the city has seen the financial, monsoon coming for many years, and certainly you can make the case that the city has been functionally bankrupt for probably up to a decade. That is what the Detroit emergency manager, Kevin Orr, has said, that the city cannot pay its bills and has not been able to pay its bills for years. However, the city pulled a lot of unusual borrowing techniques over the last decade to essentially, kick the can down the road. They basically borrowed to pay the credit card, and that just doesn't work. And that's finally, this is the moment of truth, and the city is finally stepping forward and dealing with its financial circumstances, primarily because the governor, Rick Snyder, appointed an emergency manager, Kevin Orr, who is responsible for the city's future now, and he says that bankruptcy is the way out of this mess. So,
Nathan, let me ask you, because I really don't. I don't feel sorry for Detroit. I don't know if you do. I know you live there, and I know it's popular.
I don't think people do.
But you don't think? Yeah, I think people need. Yeah, go ahead.
I think that people, I think that a lot of people do feel bad for Detroit. I think they see this as a sad day, but I don't think that the people of Detroit are that, flustered by this. I think that we are used to a blemish. We're used to, scars, and so this is yet another one of those. But I think people do view it as an opportunity for a fresh start, and in fact, there is an opportunity to position the city for success. I don't think anyone believes that the city's financial picture will be fixed overnight. But I do think that people believe that this could position the city to finally get on the right track.
Yeah, and let me ask you, do you agree with some of these ideas that's not giving up on some of these sacred cows, as they're called, is part of the demise of the city?
I think you're right. I think the sacred cows are going to be litigated enormously in this bankruptcy too. So, I heard what you were talking about. There are many, sacred cows. I think there are the pension payments.
Nathan, I gotta cut. Can you stay with me? I want to bring you back at the break. Okay, hang on one second. This is Grant Cardone. You're in the Cardone Zone News 96.5. We're talking about the bankruptcy of Detroit and what you have to do to avoid doing that to yourself. This is Grant Cardone, Cardone Zone, News 96.5. We're talking about Detroit, the bankruptcy this weekend, one of the greatest cities on this planet. It's now official. It will fail. It will be restructured under bankruptcy. I'm telling you, folks, if you do not pay attention to what is happening to cities, governments, countries around the world, this can and will happen to you. Make a list of the sacred cows. Make a list of the excuses you have. And don't do what Nathan just told me on the phone. They're just using new debt to handle old debt. Nathan, what are some other mistakes they made that American households can learn from?
Well, I think that they did not pay attention to their legacy costs, the pension costs and the healthcare costs that really racked up over the last several decades. And like you said earlier, no one really dealt with the issue until it was too late. And so now there's going to be very difficult decisions made in bankruptcy, and people who have been relying on pension payments will probably have some of those payments reduced, and some of the retiree healthcare could go away.
Yeah.
So, this is difficult, and but now the decisions are being made. And I think that's the good news, that someone's finally going to deal with these issues, the issues that have not been dealt with for years.
Nathan, thank you so much. Business editor at Detroit Free Press is telling you folks, look, you got to deal with the hard stuff. Detroit did not do that. It wasn't popular to talk about unions and pension funds and overpaying. Here's a city that's been overspending for years. And I'm concerned that you're starting to do the same thing again. I'm concerned that you're starting to use debt again that you gave up on in 2008. We found out it was the wrong thing to do. Look, we can go the way of France and Spain and Portugal and Cyprus. We can go there, and you're going to look back and say, oh my gosh, man, the warning, the signs were on the wall. They were all over the place. They're everywhere. People don't want to give up their goodies. They're buying cars again. They're buying houses. I don't want to give up my credit card. There's a line in Starbucks today. There's a line. There's got to be 25 people in this line buying $4 coffee, and I'm like, half these people, I know half these people can't afford it. The lady in front of me asked for money that was put on her card yesterday back on another credit card because she's not paying attention. And this happened to me. It's happened to me in my life where I go broke, or I end up with a drug problem, or I end up with the wrong people because I'm denying the obvious. This is what I want you to do. I want you to make a list of your sacred cows. What are the things so sacred to you you are not willing to get rid of them? Those things that you're emotionally connected to. Maybe it's your house or the school system or a brother that is causing you problems, but there's an emotional connection, but you can't. I want you to make a list of those things you can't imagine getting rid of. Number two, I want you to make a list of all the excuses you have for spending, for not making money, anything that is binding you, excuses you use constantly. I don't have time, I can't work this hard, the kids, whatever. And the third thing, I want you to make a list of actions that you know you must make right now for your financial survival. Look, if you can't do those three, or I tell you what, better yet, once you do those three, call me and I'll coach you through it on what actions you need to take to get unstuck. Joy Booker Thornton, entrepreneur in Detroit, believes in Detroit, is hanging in there with Detroit. I think I'm going to like some of the things she's going to say about that. Joy, are you with me? Oh, you don't have Joy. Okay, so there are some opportunities, I believe, in Detroit. In fact, I'm going to be looking at multifamily real estate here in the next quarter in Detroit because I believe, first of all, the city's not going to go away, even though it's bankrupt. There will be opportunities for there because people are fixed. People do not like to leave. 2 million people used to live in the city of Detroit. We're down to 700,000 people there. You're probably down to the people there are like, I'm not leaving now. I've been through the worst years. I ain't going anyplace now. And those people will continue to eat hamburgers. They need a place to live. There's opportunity still there for people that are nimble, for people that can think, and for people that aren't stuck. How do you get unstuck? Make a list of your sacred cows, the things you're scared to get rid of, your credit card maybe, that Visa card or that American Express card or that MasterCard you love or the Macy's card. Number two, make a list of the excuses you use. Three, what actions do you need to take for your financial survival? This is Grant Cardone. You're in the Cardone Zone. Stay with me. News 96.5. Hang in there with me because I want to talk to you about buying a house right now, why you should not buy a house and how it is one of your sacred cows. It is one of your excuses, and it will drown you in debt. Hey, Grant Cardone here. You're in the Cardone Zone. Every week, News 96.5, we talk to you about your finances, your business, your money. Look, Detroit is going busted. Busted, broke. Can you go broke? Yes, you can. You know, I went to college. I got an accounting degree. There was not one course on how to go busted, how to go broke, and they ought to have that in school. Because if you know what the signs are, if you know what cities and counties and states and governments and countries do to go broke, then you would at least know what to avoid doing. And one of the things that I use in business is I look at other people in my space or sector that maybe haven't done well, that were on top of their game at one time. Some mentors of mine actually that ended up going broke, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that. And you know what those people did? They had some things in common that Detroit has in common. Detroit overspent. It didn't take care of its sacred cows. It was too slow to move. It was fixed in one place. It refused to bring in more money than it spent. and it refused to change when it needed to. And I've seen some mentors do that. They didn't have enough flows of income. They didn't have multiple flows of income. I know this genius, brilliant businessman that I grew up with at 29 years old. He was a great mentor of mine, and I'll refuse to mention his name because the outcome's not good. He didn't have multiple flows of income. He didn't grow a business that was not dependent upon him, and he overspent what he made, and he also had a gambling problem. So, hey, Joy Booker's on the phone with me. Joy Booker Thornton's in Detroit, and she believes in Detroit. She's an entrepreneur staying there. Tell me about the opportunities for an entrepreneur in Detroit, Joy.
Well, the opportunities for Detroit are not really that high, not because of just the areas or things of that sort. It's more or less the mindset. The resources are there, but they're hidden. I think everything that deals with Detroit is really mind over matter in my own personal just experiences, because I had the opportunity to experience both sides, the corporate American side and the urban demographic side. So anything just going forward in my opinions regarding this is to speak from my own experience and things of that sort, because, when it comes to the demise of the city of Detroit, there's two different types of perspectives. There's the urban market, of course, which I'm much familiar with, and then there's the non-urban part, which I'm not familiar with just by experience-wise, but just by more of an observation.
Yeah.
So,
what is your business, Joy?
My business is Feature Productions. It stands for Creating the Way Out, and we specialize in celebrity booking and event concept development. And our main goal and purpose is to help Black-owned businesses through celebrity events. So, just in doing the mom and pop thing, a lot of people may not have the resources to, get advertisement and things of that sort. So what we do is create opportunities for them to ride the wave along with the celebrities. And my marketing strategy is to generate between $60,000 and $100,000 per event. So that is something I'm 3 years into it. Just getting going, but definitely the ground that I've been able to cover has just been a true blessing. So.
Oh wow, that's great, and it sounds like you're doing well. So, what do you think? The problem for the city, and particularly the people in Detroit, is?
To be honest, just plain and simple, it's selfishness. A lot of people are really concerned about themselves, and so therefore everything else around them just kind of gets, put on the back burner. When you have, I can't drop names without incriminating myself. Yeah. But if you know a lot of the landmarks in the city of Detroit, like the Fox Theater, Comerica Park, these people, and Joe Louis Arena, of course, they're all ran by a certain group of people, and when you keep everything just kind of segregated in its own perspective in its own right, of course, if you're a business owner, you're going to take care of your own family first, which is understandable. But when you have a massive group of people that are supporting your business, I think it's only fair that you give back to the entire sector, or be productive to the entire sector. So I think even with the city council, the city of Detroit has been run by blacks for quite a long time. And when it comes to the urban market, because there's of course, the whole back.
But are they being run, Joy? Is it being run or run down?
Well, once again, it's the mentality. When you have to look at the mentality in order to understand the actions. So you have so many black people who may never had power or any type of leverage, and then now they've gone to school, put on a new suit, and now they're able to speak the language, and now it kind of gets to your.
Yeah, I don't think that's a black thing though, because I see people.
It's a people thing.
It's a people thing. It's got nothing to do with color, because people in Greece are doing it. People in Spain. I know California is going to go bust it. I know for sure the people in California will bust that state, because this to me is not about even education or race or any of that. It's about people denying the obvious signs, which is, hey, I can't say no to my unions because they vote for me. I can't say no to pensions because they're good for me. But the pension is no good for anybody if they can't pay the pension out.
And you're totally correct. And like I said, because it affects, the reason I bring up the race card is because it affects us differently, the actions, okay? Where, if you have someone in a Caucasian race that does that, they still find a way to become afloat. If it happens in the African American community, that's it. That was your one time, your one shot. You do not come back from that. You're done. So it has more of a hardship in the black community than it does in another community. Because we.
Well, I tell you what, I think bankruptcy is bankruptcy, and it doesn't have a color. It's all painful for everybody, because I know a lot of people that have gone through that, and it ties you up for years. It's going to be very painful for Detroit. They're maybe coming to some reality of the situation. They're still hanging on to their millions of dollars worth of art, and they don't want to give that up. Joy, thank you so much for joining the show. Appreciate it. I wish you a great entrepreneurship and success with your business there. Folks, listen to what Joy is saying. Listen to what I'm saying, okay? Because I'm going to tell you something. When it comes to finances, when it comes to running out of money, when it comes to spending more money than you have, the color of your skin, your religion will not matter, okay? Your age won't matter. Your weight won't matter. Look, when you can't pay your bills, okay, you will get crushed. When you live beyond your means, you will get crushed. Right now, you're being encouraged, only 4 years, 5 years since the Great Recession, you're being encouraged every day by the media, tremendous amounts of input for you to go buy a house. The Federal Reserve Chairman, Ben Bernanke's testimony to Congress on Wednesday, he says the Fed really, 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 really wants the housing rally to continue. Of course he wants it to continue. If housing rallies, it will pull the economy up with it, and it'll sink you in the process. Look, this economy is done. We've tripled the amount of currency that America produces without tripling the amount of services that we deliver. During Bernanke's testimony to the House Financial Services, Bernanke mentioned the financial conditions have tightened recently. Really? What changed, bro? Nothing changes in 3 weeks, my man. I don't need to be a genius. I don't have to be part of Congress or Senate to know that nothing changed. The Fed funds rate is close to zero. Okay? That means the banks basically borrow money at zero and rent it out, and they don't want to rent that money out. Okay? Can you imagine having a car and you rent the car out, you have no cost in the car, or you have a bedroom at your house and you rent it out but you have no cost? That's pure money, pure profit. Why are they doing that? Because the economy's bad. But they're not telling you that. They're telling you go buy a house, go buy a car, go buy furniture. Everything's going to be fine. This is exactly what got us into trouble. This is exactly what sank Detroit. Last week, 30-year mortgages soared from 3.35 to 4.51 because the Fed is easing. And because of the Fed's easing, they might quit printing all this money, supposedly. So rates went up, and it's terrifying Americans about refinancing. See, the increase in rates, when a rate goes up from 3.35 to 4.51 on 200,000, that costs you, that's what they're going to tell you, that's what the banks are going to tell you, that's what the mortgage company's going to tell you, oh, the rates are going to go up $130. You need to refinance now. You need to buy a house now. The pitch to get a house is on, man. They're spending billions to talk you into a house. Tremendous amounts of pressure. Go buy a house, and your wife is going to go for it. She's going to tell you low interest rates, the lowest ever, and they're moving up. Prices are going up. These are the headlines you're hearing. You're hearing things like this. There's new housing demand. I saw this yesterday in USA Today. New housing demand. When rates are low, more potential buyers enter the market, creating a demand for new housing. That's not what creates a demand for new housing. A demand for new housing is, I need a house. We're out of houses. The Smiths and the Joneses come to town and there's no houses there. That's new demand. Low rates are not new demand. See, you're being spun off. You're being sold. This is BS. New buyers enter the market, and then you have a need. Just because rates go down or because investors come in and start buying properties up does not create your need. I don't own a home. I tell you every week here, do not buy a house. A house is like, for most people, for 90% of the people, except for the very rich, a house is just, it's not a dream, it's a nightmare. It's something around your neck forever. You don't ever even get to own the house. Even a paid off house you don't own because you have to pay property taxes on that house. See, while housing is great for the economy, housing is one of the sacred cows I talked about for Detroit. It's a sacred cow. I have to have a home. We got to have a place to live. Mommy tells Papa, we got to have a place to live. We must have a place to live. Wendy's on the phone with me. She's a realtor. She's going to probably tell me I'm an idiot. What do you think, Wendy?
I'm a realtor, so I want everybody to buy a home if you can afford a home.
I don't blame you. If I was a realtor, I would say the same exact thing, and I would have a presentation that is so killer that would be a value add opportunity. But would you agree, Wendy, that most people don't actually need to buy a home?
I want to clear something up in our market, in the Lake Norman market, which is north of Charlotte. We have low opportunity for rentals. So if you're talking renting versus buying, you, in my opinion, are better off to buy. And we do have a demand. A couple years ago, we had about 45 months of inventory absorption rate here at Lake Norman, and now we're down to, if you're buying under 300,000, we're down to about 4.
But Wendy, almost 10% of all the homes sold in the first quarter were bought by investors.
Of this year?
Yes. I own rental property in Charlotte, North Carolina. I own 360 units there, okay? And what you're saying right now is what, I would just tell everybody, okay, nobody gets rich in a house. Nobody gets rich in a house. Everybody that I know that's collected rental property has gotten rich. I know a lot of people that own homes that don't get rich. I don't know anybody that has collected rental real estate, multifamily apartment buildings, that has not gotten rich. So for my listeners, just so you know, the people that are listening to this show are entrepreneurs, business people, and they want to get rich. And I'm just telling you, folks, you're not going to get rich in a house even though you need a place to live. And Wendy said, hey, there's a big demand for rental. Is that right, Wendy, in your market?
There is, yes. Actually, probably a third of my buyers this year were investors buying to rent. Yeah, you see, so Wendy's telling you, look, maybe what Wendy's telling me is the real opportunity here is to buy something, to buy a house, fix it up, and rent it. There's definitely opportunity in our market for that.
So let me ask you, if I was going to do one thing, I can't do both because I don't have the money. Would you tell me to buy a house and live in it, or buy a house and rent it to someone else?
You can't live in one and rent one?
Well, I could rent two. I could buy one and rent it out, and I could go rent an apartment somewhere and free my money up to work it.
I guess for making money, it definitely makes sense to buy one and rent it.
Yeah, exactly, because I make money like that.
Market because we have, all of the rentals are being taken up, and a lot of people are still suffering with, I guess, their credit. So therefore, they are having to rent, really. Yeah.
Now, would you say it's easier to get a loan on something I'm going to buy and rent out, or buy and live in?
Oh, no, easier to get a loan, I think, on one you're going to live in. Now, most of my investors have been cash buyers.
Because that's who pays cash.
Well, they're not making any money while it's in the bank, so they're taking it out and buying they're going to rent them out, and then as the market comes back, they'll sell them.
Yeah, and Wendy, well, your information is, what you're telling me about Charlotte is absolutely accurate about the rest of the country. Look, this supposed housing recovery that we're having is being supported by investors and hype. And while Wendy's a realtor, she wants this to continue. Folks, I'm telling you, okay, Wendy needs to bank all her cash right now because the housing recovery will not continue. When we come back from break, I'm going to tell you exactly what to do with your money and how to benefit from the housing recovery and where we're at, what to do with flippers. Hey, Grant Cardone here. You're in the Cardone Zone, News 96.5, Orlando, Florida. I'm talking to you about how to avoid a bankruptcy, how to avoid going broke, how to make money. That's what we talk about here every week. And I'm telling you, folks, the real estate community will hate me for saying this. Look, if you're going to buy a house, don't do it to live in it. Buy a house and rent it out. I'm telling you, every week I come here and tell you, look, keep your money free to work. I made a move, moved out of this unbelievable home, and I rent. Why? Why do I rent? Because I know the housing recovery cannot recover itself. It cannot sustain itself. It will not last. You have a third of America. You probably have half of America, 150 million people between new millennials and baby boomers that have no interest in a home. A kid 15, 16, 17, 25 years old, that whole 30 years old, okay, has no interest in the middle class house as a dream. Housing starts fell 9% in June. Refinancings dropped 46% from a year ago. What am I telling you? Look, it won't last. I'm telling you, it's being supported by investors. The lady from Charlotte, Joy, said to me, I'm sorry, not Joy, it was Wendy. Wendy said to me, a third of my buyers are cash buyers. What do you think that is? Wendy, those are cash buyers. They're not buying homes, dude. They're buying rentals. You get it? House flippers are racing in the markets right now. They're moving in, they're buying. The first half of this year, 9% of all single-family homes in this country were resold within 6 months. They were resold. This is what I suggested to the Obama administration 4 years ago. Take all the housing stock that was a problem, bring it to the market, sell it to investors only, but make sure they have to hold that property for at least 3 years, or they would get a tax penalty so that they wouldn't flip all this product back into the marketplace. The only thing that's happening now is people are buying houses and flipping them back into the market. Here in Florida, Palm Coast, Florida, for instance, led the way. 37% of the single-family home sales were flipped in the first half of this year. In Omaha, it was 32%. Were flipped in 6 months. In Daytona Beach, 16% were flipped in 6 months. The first half of this year, 5,000 single-family homes in New York were flipped in 6 months. In Jacksonville, 260% jump in prices. Orlando, 75% bump. Why? Flippers. So Sherry's going to ask me, Grant, should I buy a house or should I rent? Sherry, what's your question? I think that's what she's going to ask me.
Hey, how are you?
Sorry, we had a little technical difficulty there for a second. What's your question?
You know, I'm calling because there's a lot of talk about rates are getting better. You know, maybe it's time to buy. I've been renting a condo, and you know, we're paying a pretty fair rate. And I'm thinking, you know what? If I've got to buy this thing, I think it's going to be higher. I'm going to be paying more. Is it worth it?
How much is your rent right now, Sherry?
You know, I'm at that point in my life where maybe I need to think about buying something, owning something.
Yeah, but why do you need to buy something?
Why do you need to buy something?
You hear about throwing your money away, you know?
Yeah, okay. Well, you're throwing your money away. So, I mean, that's what. If you buy it, how is that an investment?
Well, I guess you sort of you hope that at the end of that time that you're owning it, that you're going to have some kind of profit.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and this is Sherry, one of the sacred cows that the middle class has been built on. It's one of these ideas that the way to get rich or the way to create wealth or freedom is by buying a home, investing in a 401k, and the truth is what you're doing is in both cases you just give your control up. So how much are you paying rent right now?
So we're at $17.75 right now.
$17.75, and how much is the place that they want to sell to you?
Well, they want to sell it for $335.
Okay, so here's the deal. Just simple math. You're going to have to put $60,000 down to buy it, maybe $30,000. You're going to have to put $30,000 down to buy it, and your payments on that house are going to be about $18,000 a year, or about $1,500 a month. So it's going to look like, is it a condo or a house?
It's a condo.
So then you're going to have property taxes, then you're going to have HOA fees that can continue to go up, and you're going to be basically at the same payment that you're at right now, but you're out of $30,000. And if your employer leaves, he moves, he decides to go to another place, you're not going to be able to go with him because your money's tied up in this thing. Don't do it. If you're going to take the $30,000 and buy a condo, go buy somebody else's condo and rent it out into the marketplace. I hope you take my advice. Folks, I hope you take my advice here. I'll save you from going bankrupt the way Detroit did. This is Grant Cardone. You're in the Cardone Zone. Have a great week.